Relative abundance on microbiome testing versus bacterial load or fungal load. What do those two things mean and how do they relate? So this week we had a lunch and learn, and in that lunch and learn I went through a case and interpreted a next generation sequencing vaginal microbiome. Next generation sequencing vaginal microbiome reports present relative abundance. So we get percentages based on each of the bacteria present and the relative abundance of them. In a lot of the newer next generation sequencing reports, we also get a metric which is load, bacterial or fungal load as it relates to the bacteria or fungus in that report. And in the lunch and learn, I gave some understanding about what that might mean, but I've been thinking about what I said and I want to expand on it because I think it's really important to give clarity around these concepts if we're going to be interpreting next generation sequencing. So let's start with relative abundance. Relative abundance is a percentage and it's relative to what else is existing in that space. So when we use next generation sequencing, we're using DNA or RNA to detect which bacteria or fungi are present in a space. And so we get a percentage in terms of how it relates to the other things. So if we use an analogy of people in a room, 100 people in a room, 60 of them are wearing red t-shirts. 20 of them are wearing blue t-shirts. What have we got left? 20 are wearing yellow t-shirts. 100 people, right? So we've got a 60, 20, 20 relative abundance. 60%, 20%, 20%. Now I can have 10 people in a room where 6 of them are wearing red t-shirts. 2 of them are wearing blue t-shirts. 2 of them are wearing yellow t-shirts. And the relative abundance of people and t-shirt colors is exactly the same as what I described when there were 100 people in that room. So this is where we have this concept now of relative abundance of bacteria versus the amount or the load of bacteria that is present. And you can see that there is a difference between 100 people wearing t-shirts versus 10 people wearing t-shirts. And the difference might apply to across that spectrum of load, which often the metric is given as being normal and then it's quantified, or being under normal or overgrown. And so when we're looking at microbes in a space, the diversity and which microbes they are, of course, matters. How many different species we have and what's going on. But in the vaginal microbiome, where low diversity is a hallmark, it's not unusual to see in a eubiotic state or in a balanced bacterial microbiome, something like 80% lactobacillus, just one lactobacillus crispatus, say. But if we apply loading, a bacterial load, and we think about it being under where we would expect it to be, it's like a room full of 10 people. The room full of 10 people is not going to create, if we're thinking about bacteria and protection, it's not going to create potentially the same amount of protection as having a room full of 100 people, of having 60% made up of 60 people being crispatus versus 60% made up of 6 people. So an underloaded microbiome is just as problematic as an overloaded microbiome, but you can experience symptoms at any of those loads, under, normal, and overgrowth. But the decision making then relates to, is this microbiome got the goods to protect itself? Is this microbiome imbalanced and symptomatic, but the amount of bacteria is not problematic? It may be the diversity and the species. Or is this a frank overgrowth where we've got, a really high density of microbes competing for space as well? So hopefully that makes sense. As I said, the lunch and learn we had, if you are on the mailing list, you would have had the link for the replay. The replay is available to watch until the 15th of July, as is the free PDF download that came with that replay. The 15th of July is meaningful because it's also the last day of early bird pricing for Vagiversity, which is the 6 months of education and mentoring that runs from August to January. We meet twice a month. We have a lecture and then we do a live mentoring in the second session. You can watch it on replay. You don't have to be attending the lives, although it's incredibly useful if you are. So I would love you to join me on that. I'll pop the link in the comments below. As I said, you need to be on my mailing list to have received the replay link. So if you are on my mailing list, you would have had a lot of emails this week. One of them is the replay and the PDF download. Thanks, everybody. Any questions, pop them below. Thanks.